Welcome to Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. We're a day late, but sometimes life just happens, and life happened yesterday, and everything's fine here. We got thunder and some rain, but that's about it. And I don't know when these quote unquote dangerous thunderstorm warnings from the weather service started, but they're just ridiculous. Every time I get one, it's like, look, they're crying wolf again. You're already giving me a severe thunderstorm watch and then a severe thunderstorm warning, and now you're telling me it's a dangerous thunderstorm. Overkill. Dishwasher is fixed. Wasn't the filter. Did you know your sprayer arms could get clogged? Yeah, me neither. So, the nice man unclogged them for me. I now know how to do it myself. So, that's handled. So, how was my reading week? I did not DNF a book. I should have DNF'd a book, but I didn't DNF a book. So, we're going to talk about the book I should have DNF'd and I didn't. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. That would be What the Wind Knows by Amy Harmon. It was the May book club choice. It was my first book by Amy Harmon. I'm not doing a full review here. I will do a separate review video for that. I have, however, written my blog review, which is a very good thing because it helped me purge the book from my system and not put me in a reading slump. So far in book club, Amanda and I are the only ones that have read this. I think Amanda gave it a 3 or a 3.5. I gave it a very generous 2. Had I not read this for book club, I would have DNF'd it. I'll give you a sneak peek at the wrap up. You can go read my review. As always, it's linked down below in the description box. I do not understand the glowing reviews. I found the romance to be not believable. It is a fair comparison as an Irish Outlander, and I found it to be creepy, and I at one point flung the book across the room. So there's the sneak peek. The video will go up the last Friday of the month. Don't know what that is off the top of my head, but there you go. That's when it'll be. Okay, so everything else this week was great. I finished listening to The Fellowship of the Ring, and it was the Rob Inglis version. This one was fantastic. Didn't skip stuff. There weren't great gaps in the story. You got connected to characters. You understood what was going on. All the poetry and the singing was there. It was fantastic. I easily recommend that audio version of the book. And was it my favorite fantasy book of all time? No. Is it going to live in my heart forever? No, probably not. But then again, it is a very familiar story. It is very hyped in the culture, and there was nothing left to discover for me, so it kind of fell flat. Didn't dislike it, but it definitely fell flat for me. Okay. And the only other physical book I read this week was The Well by Stephanie Landsem. This was my first book by her. It was also her debut novel. And it is the first book in the trilogy. What is the name of the trilogy? I, of course, don't know, and it's not listed on the book. I'll put the trilogy name right here. I enjoyed this very much. It is a biblical fiction, and it is an imagined retelling of the story of the well. First of all, it's short. It's 284 pages. I enjoyed it. I will read the other two books in the series. However, I didn't find the romance romantic. I didn't find her. She marries someone other than the man she quote unquote loves. And that part of it didn't work for me in the slightest. The story worked. The imagined life of the woman at the well worked. But the romance aspect absolutely did not work for me. It was not well developed. It wasn't believable, and it probably was just too young for me, so that undoubtedly factored in. And I wish there was, they had more depth to the character she ends up with. But he's really a side character for 99.9% of the book. And then he comes in and saves the day. So that on that aspect, just it didn't work for me. However, otherwise, I truly enjoyed the book, and I will happily pick up another Stephanie Landsem book. Okay, that brings me to what I read on Kindle this week. And surprisingly, I read a lot. While the weather and repairmen and stuff were happening yesterday, I did finish Jane by the Book by Pepper Basham. This is a novella. It is on Kindle Unlimited. And it tells the story of Titus and Jane, who meet by happenstance in Bath, England, while they are both there on business at Christmas time, late November, early December. And they attempt to solve a mystery together about Jane's relative. Jane is this very closed off, hurt, distrustful character who has very definite emotional baggage. Titus is this very open, tactile, lovey-dovey, always has a smile on his face character. And he's also, by the way, the author of the Detective Jack Miracle stories. And so, as you can tell, this is a modern day contemporary romance. And I enjoyed the story, but like all novellas, there wasn't enough depth. And I definitely think Titus and Jane had enough going on that this could have easily been a full-length novel, and it would have been far more enjoyable, and I would have believed their love story. As it is, I didn't believe it, given how much emotional baggage Jane has. There are some very nice faith elements in this story, but in the end, like all novellas for me, I just wanted more, and it wasn't there. It wasn't there. So, the book that saved me from a reading slump for the What the Wind Knows is A Groom of One's Own by Emma St. Clair. This is the first book in the Appy series, which she writes with Jenny Proctor. And this is a contemporary, clean, sweet hockey romance rom-com. And like all of Emma's books, it is just emotionally funny and sweet and full of chemistry and characters you want to take home and just fold into your life. Emma, or Eli, and Bailey, her name almost flew out of my head, are so adorable together. It's on Kindle Unlimited. It is a fantastic read. Hockey isn't my sport. I have no investment in it. However, I will read, a hockey book written by Emma and Jenny and be happy about it. This is an easy recommendation for anyone who loves a hockey romance. You can read them as standalones. You don't have to read the first two books in the Sweater Weather series, also by Emma and Jenny. You don't, they're standalones. They're self-explanatory. It's just sweet. Eli is a great protector. He is, again, another very tactile hero. He is just fantastically written. I am enjoying my time with hockey romances. And Jenny's book, I'll put the cover right here. Name just fell out of my head. Is queued up on my Kindle to read. So I will get to that one shortly. What else did I read on Kindle this week? I also read The Fast Lane by Sharon Peterson. I am on the launch team for this. I've read the art courtesy of NetGalley and Sharon for my fair and honest review. I'm not going to give you a full review here because I'm going to do a launch day video review for this. Releases in June. It's amazing. So I picked this up immediately after What the Wind Knows, and before I wrote my written review for What the Wind Knows, and I read the first third of it, and it wasn't working. It wasn't working. So I stopped. I wrote my written review, purged it. Then I picked Sharon's book back up, and I blew through the last 2/3. It is the second book in the Two Hearts Texas series. It can be read as a standalone. So you do get May from the Fake Out, she is in this book. She is the heroine of the Fast Lane Alley. They're best friends, so May is in this book a lot. Chris, who is May's fiance, is also in the book, and he was the hero of the Fake Out. But he's, minor, he's there and then he's not, so he's not like a focus of the book. But it was just nice to see him, and if you haven't read the Fake Out, it isn't a big deal. Also in the book, from the Do-Over, is Mimi, the grandmother in the Do-Over. And she makes a brief appearance. You won't know it's her unless you've read the book. And she is her normal Mimi self. And you are just completely enchanted and reminded of why Mimi is such a beloved and memorable character. Thank you for that. What? Thank you. Okay, so now that Dave has interrupted, which is fine. So I ended up falling in love with this. It is a road trip rom-com. It is clean. There is chemistry. There is family drama. Sneak peek. Yeah. Stay tuned for that video in June. It's getting a full one. Okay. Last up was an Audible Plus listen. I listened to it out of order. I should have listened to this one second. That was The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. This is on the Audible Plus catalog until the 31st of the month. It is the short story after Elantris, and I should have listened to Elantris first. Great. So, here's Elantris. I'm currently listening to Elantris. And The Emperor's Soul is contained in the Arcanium Unbound. So if you want to read it, it is available. It was a thoroughly enjoyable Sanderson book. Even if you read it out of order, it is completely understandable. I loved it. There is something comforting and familiar about Sanderson's characters and writing style, even if you've never been introduced to them before, because he writes so expressively and naturally, and it's like you're sitting down and having a dialogue with characters. He's not trying to impress you with his knowledge. He's not trying to make it into this grand esoteric commentary on life. It's just a good story, and it's well performed, and I was just absolutely enthralled. I listened to it, I think, in one day while I was doing things around the house and in the yard, and I was pleased as punch. It was fantastic. So, that is what I read last week. It was a lot, but it wasn't a lot at the same time. So, overall, it was a good week. Overall, it's a lot of mood reading, but I am absolutely okay with that. My brain has needed it, so I am not complaining. So what am I going to read? So I have read the prologue of the Miss Graham's Cold War cookbook, and this book is 500 pages. And obviously, you can tell that they're very thin little pages, which, we all know I'm not a fan of. However, be that as it may, so I've read the prologue. I need to be in the mood. I'm not quite in the mood for this. But when I am, I will undoubtedly just blow through it. It's going to be, I don't want to say a heavy read, but it's going to be a heavy read, I think. That is my guess. So we shall see. And because What the Wind Knows was a poorly written time travel novel, even though she has a beautiful writing style and she writes beautifully, not getting started. I did pick up In This Moment by Gabrielle Meyer. It is the second book in the Timeless series, and I read the first 3 chapters because Gabrielle does do time travel very well. You know, it's not a surprise that her heroine is a time traveler. It's handled, it's explained, there's no great secret. So, in this book, she has 3 lives she's living before she's 21, whereas in this, When the Day Comes, which was the first book in the series, there were only 2 lives. I have set aside In This Moment because I'll read it. I'm not in the mood to read it right now. In this book, her lives are very different. And they're not relying on the other timeline to succeed. I've read 1 chapter in each timeline in this, and each timeline is dependent on the most contemporary timeline to you and I. And in all 3 timelines, she is involved in medicine to some extent, and it's irritating. So the first timeline is right as the Civil War is breaking out and starts in April of 1861, and she's a senator's daughter, and she's really not, in the first chapter, medically involved, but Civil War, you know it's coming. And the next chapter is 1941, and she's a nurse, and she's going to DC for World War II, obviously. And in 2001, she lives in DC, and she's a medical student. I'm not loving the coincidental life thread. It just feels too convenient. But that could also be incredibly colored by What the Wind Knows, so I'm going to set it aside and come back to it at a future point. It's just the wise thing to do. So I will finish Elantris this week. I do have a physical format of it. I am listening to it on Audible. It is set in the Cosmere. It is fantastic, like you would expect. This is his very first book. It's amazing. What can I say? It's Sanderson. And I will start the second book in The Lord of the Rings this week after I finish Elantris. So that is plenty. I will undoubtedly pick up something easy on my Kindle in between. And yeah, so that is what I'm planning to read.